All right, we are live. This is episode, I think, interview show number 6 or 7. I lost count. But I am with Ben Burgis, the host of Give Them an Argument and the part of Jacobin Magazine. See, I just stumbled there. Ben, how you doing?
I am pretty good. I'm tired. Just got back from doing a debate with a libertarian at Texas Tech University in Lubbock. But I'm good.
You're good. Okay, you're good. Yeah, you're cutting out there a bit, but
Oh no.
uh, you should be fine.
Okay.
It happens. Internet
Okay.
connections, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
think
but you're still
shit here,
good.
but okay.
Yeah, it's a little the audio's kind of crackling in and out, but it should be good.
Oh no. Let me try
Um,
something if my audio's because I want to make sure we're okay. Give me a second.
no problem. You can
Okay.
just sit here.
Let me try. You want me to just do it set? Does this sound okay?
Yeah, sound should be pretty good.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can
Let's just
kind of
do
hear
that.
my voice in the background. Yeah, but
Oh, let me
uh,
turn you down. Uh,
there should be good now.
All right.
But
No echo this stuff?
yeah, my mic's good.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, nice hairdo, by the way. It's all good. You also have a new blog, a new philosophy blog on Substack. Could you explain a little bit? Because it
Sure.
just started, and I've actually
Yep.
been looking through it. I think your most recent blog on Jordan Peterson was very interesting. So
Yeah. So, yeah, the Substack started that at the end of December, or well, the first like real essay went up on January 1st, but the announcement post was the end of December. So it's called Philosophy for the People. And I kind of, when I decided I was going to do this, I sort of put out a call for suggestions for names, and and that was my favorite because of the kind of double meaning to that, which is on the one hand that the parts about political philosophy are, you know, for people in the sense of being bound up with a leftist political program, but then that the parts then that the all of it, right, like even the stuff about general philosophy, is philosophy for the people in the sense, so not just for, you know, a few academics, but for anybody who's interested, you know, sort of accessible to a wider audience.
no, it's nice, and it's been going. It just started, so you actually have a few blog posts up already. So I'd say in about a few
Yeah,
months
they're
you'll have.
going up every Sunday morning at like 8 a.m. West Coast. I guess that's 10 Central,
Yeah,
11 East
10 a.m.
Coast.
Central. CST, yeah. So I guess to start, and as always, I got my clipboard of questions that I go through every hour
Sure.
or
Yeah.
literally every day of the interview. I go through my last minute questions just to kind of get all the question, all what I need to ask. And already I'm starting to
Yeah.
stumble. So as of this interview, and I did a little research here, you
Sure.
have 2.8K follow 248 point K, I should say, followers on the Give Them an Argument YouTube channel, which has been going strong for I think 3 years at this point. You started in August of 2020, so
Yeah. So
it's a
about two
long
and a half years.
time, 2.5
Yeah.
years. Man, I mean, any I guess first of all, reaction to that? Is that like kind of overwhelming in a sense? Like, is it
Uh,
how do I
no, it's been good. Yeah. I mean, it's good. Yeah. I think it's, yeah. What do you guys, 24.8, something like
I
that.
think I think it's, yeah, 24.8. I think it's 24.8. I probably put a decimal in the wrong place. Look at me and my math skills. That's
Yeah.
like
24.8.
24.8 K subscribers.
Yeah. It's
So
been good.
yeah,
It's like a very, you know, I mean, it's not, I mean, in terms of the range of kind of, you know, left podcasts, it's, you know, I think in terms of, you know, viewership and all that, it's, you know, I think it's like a sort of solid mid tier kind of, um, You know, Chapo it is not, but it's
Mhm.
a it's it's done pretty well. I think we've had, and I think that also definitely built like an audience that likes the sort of specific kind of niche things that we do there, right? So like have I kind of think of sort of core categories of what it is that you'll get versions of some of these things on like some other shows, but I think probably our kind of core strengths are like uh, are debunking, right? So in other words, like just kind of take like here's what Charlie Kirk or somebody has said, and and
Mm.
like take apart what's wrong with it. Debates we do on Thursday nights. So the main show is on Monday night at 8 Eastern, and then but there's also on Thursday nights at 8 Eastern we do these debate breakdowns where I'll have guests on and we'll watch sometimes recent debates, sometimes like William F. Buckley argued with Michael Harrington on Fire Night in
Mhm.
1975 or something,
Nice.
and um, those two certainly. Um, Philosophy, I think there's more of obviously that you get in other kinds of podcasts, but we also will just have like the sort of you know Atticus Barrett or Sam Cedar or somebody comes on to whatever's going on in the news. We'll do that also. But I think it's at least a different combination of those things than you get in other places. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I guess in the 2.5 years, I think we've kind of like trial and error kind of figured out like what the sort of particular beat is that we're trying to cover, and we've sort of and really happy with the guests who've been on. So yeah, I mean, I think it's been great. If anybody who's watching, uh, wants to check it out, just like go to YouTube or podcast, says give them an argument, or if you want to see this in the on the planet, go over to patreon.com/BURGIS and be GTA patron, and that's even better.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, I've been watching really since from the very beginning, and it's pretty good. I mean, I have to say I do enjoy the interviews with Anna and Sam and with Jason as well. Jason Miles, our mutual friend, also from Give Them a Revolution, or This is
Yes,
Revolution.
this
I'm
is
sorry, my
Revolution
right.
is Jason's show. The Give Them a Revolution, since it's play on Give Them an Argument, and this is Revolution, so that's the name that we use in the sort of the branding for the live shows that we did in Los Angeles and New York, and God knows, maybe Kansas City. We'll see.
Yeah, like we were saying before we went on the air, we're hopeful that it can happen. Like I said, I would definitely be down to actually meeting you all in person, because there's a real big group of us that have kind of gotten to know each other through social media and whatnot in the last 2.5 years. It's the same thing with me with this show. I mean, I've only been doing it like really part time since
Mm-hmm.
August of 2021, so a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
It's same way, trial and error. It's YouTube, it's Twitch, it's all interview format.
Yeah.
I did Mike Figueredo a few weeks ago from the Humanist Report. I interviewed Nathan J. Robinson from
Oh,
Current
nice.
Affairs about his
Yep.
upcoming book. Uh, it's kind of a small YouTube channel, small Twitch channel, but
Mm-hmm.
it seems that people are actually watching. It's not like I'm not going to get at least the views that or the subscriber count that GT has or Left Reckoning has or whoever our mutual friends are. Again, this is Revolution, but uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm happy with it. It's a small niche channel. It's a
Mm-hmm.
leftist YouTube channel, and I enjoy what I do,
Nice.
and I hope that it grows. That's the thing with Mike. When I was speaking with him, he was just like, just keep doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
and it'll grow. And I'm thinking, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I guess the next thing I would ask, kind of into that question of like, are you surprised at all? I guess this might answer the last question, but like, are you surprised at all after 2.5 years of doing this that people are actually like they really enjoy the content that you do with the good work, whether it be the debates or the interviews or the what was it, the pod? I think you did like Soprano interview or Soprano watch party, something like that you did with Nando Villa a
Yeah,
while back. I think you did some other stuff with uh, David Dayen and David Feldman and Matt Christman. How do you say his last name? Christman.
Crispin.
Uh, like Christman, they all kind of are involved with the show as guests and in in different aspects. So, are you surprised? I guess that people are actually enjoying the good work that you've done
Yeah, I mean,
in
I think I
that two and
was
a half years.
certainly at least cautiously optimistic going into it that that there's like that this would be the case, and I think it has been the case. There has been that it's a like there's it's not like again it's not in the sort of top end of like the most popular left podcasts because I'm not really interested in sort of doing uh like I don't like I'm not really interested just kind of do sort of like react to whatever happened yesterday
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
content. I'm like violently allergic to like intra left drama kind of content with but I feel like the people who are into what we're doing are really into it, which is great, right? That they that like
Hmm.
they so it's sort of a definitely it's like a slower and more you know and like it's fun, but it is like more like intellectually engaged and like that stuff. And I think that there's like I think if I mean look I think I'm more or less did the kind of show like if I were just like shopping around for something to watch that I would want,
Hmm.
right? And so I think that there are even if it's not you know uh, like even if it's not thousands of concurrent viewers or whatever. I mean like the like
Hmm.
if something's live and it's like the most popular things are maybe like hundreds of concurrent viewers, but like and on a Monday night it's like maybe 100 and something, but like in but again I think it fills a niche that I wanted to fill, and and does have a response from like the sort of an audience for that kind of lane, and I've been good with that.
The I guess that response audience would be from probably the IDW people, like you say, the Charlie Kirk audience, the people that tend to uh, uh, listen to the Charlie Kirk or the Jordan Peterson or Sam Harris or any of those like what do you call them, far right reactionaries that just have
Uh,
a sort of like niche to respond to anything that is considered
yeah, I mean, yes and
problematic
no
is probably not the best
with those
word.
guys. Right? I mean, I think that it's like sometimes, right? Like you'll definitely you all for his guys, but will also say that like a lot of those guys that you just mentioned are sort of very are are very careful about not
Mhm.
not engaging with stuff that's like looked at. So like you mentioned earlier that you'd interviewed Nathan, current affairs, and that's my all-time favorite example of this because he wrote, I don't know if you discussed, but a few years ago in current affairs he wrote an article about Jordan Peterson called "The Intellectual We Deserve," and
Yep.
uh, and it's and which has definitely gotten under years and said over the years, like he's like kind of referred to it a few times, and then like eventually he said on Twitter, it's like I don't know, year ago or something, I don't remember exactly, but he said, um, like anywhere, anytime, Mr. Robinson. Like in other words, he's saying like like he was actually inviting him to have a debate with him, and Nathan, of course, said yes, of course. I'd love to. And then Peterson just ghosted him, right? He stopped responding, which is my favorite. My all time favorite example, because like he was actually the one who made like it's a sort of extreme instance of a larger thing, which is that a lot of these guys are just very careful about putting themselves in situations that wouldn't end up looking good for them. I mean, I think that that was kind of Peterson's experience with with Zizek to some extent, and I think that like there are honorable exceptions, I suppose. It's like it's like Charlie Kirk or what he stands for. I'll give him credit for like actually being willing to like in what is it fall 2021 actually did do a debate with him, which I was like shocked actually that he took up the offer. But
I think I did a stream on it. Where actually, I did when I was first doing Twitch streams. I did a react like watching
mm-hmm.
the stream itself, watching the debate, rooting for you, and then like kind of writing down things that I thought that you made a good point of making, and that Kirk was just kind of, in my view, he was like deflecting the answer. Like he could just never really get a full on response from him. And I guess in a way, and not to put, I mean, I don't mean to put all these guys in a box, but it just seems that these folks, not just Peterson or Harris or Charlie Kirk. I mean, there's a bunch of them like Steven Crowder, who like runs from Sam Cedar, and same with Dave
Totally.
Rubin. It's like, you try to get these people like to they always like talk about, oh, debate me, and then you actually take them up on that offer, and then bam, they're gone within like 2 seconds. And it's
Yeah,
just like,
exactly.
you guys don't really want to have an
No,
I
no,
guess
they
what
don't.
they would call an intellectual discussion, right? You just want it for the clicks. You want to like go to your audience and be like, oh, I debated this quote unquote liberal minded person, or this lefty, and proved my point, when in actuality it was the exact opposite. And
Right.
I think the good thing about the left is that we can have our disagreements for sure. I mean, God knows, there's a lot of people on the left that I've had
Sure.
disagreements with. I'm sure you've had them as well. But I think if we all come together in unity in the same way that hopefully that we did, like say 3-4 years ago,
Yeah.
that will be a lot stronger. We'll hopefully be a lot stronger than those on the right, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah.
just a thought process.
Yeah.
It comes to mind literally every day. I mean, I ever since we lost, forgive me for mentioning him, because he's been a huge influence on me in the time he's been gone. But ever since Michael left us, it's been real sad
Yeah.
in a way, and it's been tough to kind of see the left. And I'm not naming any names, and I'm sure you know a lot of these people more than I do, because you've had a lot more interactions with them, and good communications in a lot of ways. It's just hard to see kind of some of the left, disintegrate from one another. When there's a disagreement, we take it personally, and we shouldn't do that. And
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I think that yeah. I mean, I think it's a I mean, I guess maybe I'll just say this one thing about that, which is that I don't want to dismiss necessarily the importance of some of those issues that people do go at each other about, because some of them maybe I think don't matter at all. Sometimes I think, in fact, people do go after each other a lot over things that are like incredibly inconsequential objectively, but like sometimes it does matter more. But I guess I would just sort of urge, like, if you want to actually change the world, right? If you want to
Mhm.
build like a, you don't just want to do podcasts, right? You want to have a movement that can uh, organize places and win elections and all those other things. Then realistically, that means that you're going to have to work together, sometimes very closely together, with people who you have actually pretty big disagreement. I mean, like if you think about I mean, think about somebody who's like, uh, in like the 1930s when like the big industrial unions like the UAW were being, like if you're like a socialist or communist, like CIO organizer, uh, and you think about the range of attitudes and like opinions that like a lot of workers that you're getting with might have. I mean, this is like, look, there's been tremendous social progress since the 30s, right? A lot of them are like
Oh,
much
yeah.
worse,
Oh,
than
yeah.
like it's a much more racist country, it's a much more sexist country, all that stuff back then. So it's
Oh,
like if you think about the sort of you know depth of disagreement that you're often going to have with people that you'd actually have to work with to like accomplish anything real, right? I think that uh, I think that it can help put into perspective some of the things that people get like super mad at each other about right now, right? I mean, like if you're going to like get mad about what if like you have slightly different, you have like different assessments of some politician, or you have or like what like tactics you think that those politicians should have used, or you have maybe even more serious disagreements. Maybe like you think in terms of um, things like some of the foreign policy stuff that people have gotten mad at each other about Ukraine, for example. That, I mean, that matters. That matters a lot. But like,
yeah.
it's still.
Yeah.
But it's still. I would just urge that it's like, I don't know, man. Just go like log off and talk to your friends and neighbors for a little while, and you're gonna find that you're gonna find a lot of opinions you're gonna like a lot less than like the worst takes of the people you're getting mad about online who are like other leftists.
Yeah. I was actually reading an article from your colleague, I guess it would be Megan Day from Jacobin,
Yep.
and, I forget his name, who they wrote an article, she wrote an article to a response about that issue of logging off, and,
Mm-hmm.
she Megan was in the opinion of, "Hey, we shouldn't log off." Like, social media is, it can be damaging, it can be addictive, it can be toxic, it can be all those things. Like, believe me, since we've been in this pandemic, whatnot, I can't tell you how many times I've been addicted to my social media. Like, I have my limits and I engage when I want to. But I know when there are times to interact and not interact. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what Megan was making was that, the positive thing about social media is that it brings us together in a sense that we know about organizations like DSA. Like, if you'd have told me like 5 or like maybe 8 years ago prior to Bernie's campaign of who the DSA was, I wouldn't be able to tell you a damn thing, you know?
Sure.
And the other thing is, like, Bernie, his at least his first campaign kind of lit a fire in a lot of us voters who were, I mean, I'm 30 now, but I was in my early 20s at the time. The aspect of democratic socialism, and I became a DSA member. I guess I should just say it. I'm a card carrying DSA member. I work for them on my terms. I go to events when I can, and I interact and engage when I have to. And I learned all that through social media, through organizations, through events, and that's the aspect I think that we need to focus on in terms of a social media. If we're going to build a group of us leftists of all shapes and forms and whatnot, if you get what I'm saying, of all kinds, basically, uh, you're going to have to utilize social media for the engagement. Oh, I don't think I can hear you, Ben. I think you're muted.
I was just going to say, I mean, yes, you're right. I don't think that it's wise to completely let go of social media as a tool. Like it's people think that they could do sort of activism on social media, that like hashtags are going to do something or whatever. Like that's largely empty. But I do
Yeah.
think it can be a useful way of getting people in touch with each other so they can do things out in meat space in the real world. So I do think that's true. I do think there's some value to the left, not to the not that that's in danger of happening. Right, I got the opposite problem.
Right.
But like I also think what you said earlier is important. That you should know your own limits, and it's like, look, I have there are. Not everybody has to be a teetotaler, but but if but like if your relationship is problematic, right? Maybe drink less, or maybe like maybe don't drink, right? And so
Yeah.
there might be some approximate analogy, although now I'm regretting that analogy because the way I was pointing out, not that I think that maybe used it on in a sort of terrible problematic way, but like I do find it a little bit funny that she's who you're quoting there, because I don't know when this article came out, but in the
I think it was 2018, so about 4 years
yeah,
ago.
okay, yeah, because in 2023 she barely ever uses social media.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like seriously, go to her
Oh,
Twitter account
my
and like
lips are
see,
sealed.
like
What?
it's amazing how little she posts.
Oh, right. Well, she's very busy at the moment, so I think
Oh, fair enough.
her
I just think
system
that
is
she's like maybe also decided that like it's like I'm gonna have more fun if I'm not really using it much.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, oh, there goes another siren I apologize. I don't know what's going on, but um so yeah, I wanted to jump into, the State of the Union. I know
Yeah,
in our private conversations you said you really don't have much to say about it, which I understand. I mean, I did a whole like 2-hour stream on YouTube and Twitch reacting to it, and it was probably the best fun I ever had in my role as a part-time leftist streamer.
yeah.
But as far as I guess you could say, what were your thoughts generally about the speech overall? I mean, it was like 2 hours long. Is generally what the State of the Union technically
Yeah, I
is,
mean, from what I,
and
you know,
seeing as I was gonna say it's and how do you think that would connect to, the Biden presidency, jumping into the political aspect? He's been in office, a year and a half, take or leave it, 2 years. How that would kind of assess your view of his presidency so far going into 2024.
yeah. Um,
That was just a
so
lot I gave to you there.
sure, no, that's no problem. So I'm not going to be able to answer all parts of it, but I'll try to answer some of them. I think that
No, go
uh,
for it.
I think that um, well, I should say, I mean, to be really clear, cards on the table, right? Reason that I don't have that much to say about the State of the Union is that is that I literally only watched some highlights because I watched the whole thing because I said I'd write an article about it for um,
Mm,
which you could you can find now. I think it's called like Biden's State of the Union didn't offer working class or something like that for last year,
I'll
but
put that in there.
this year, since Luke Savage was going to do the article for Jacobin, like I wasn't like too, and I was also, I think I was on a plane coming back from that thing I mentioned, the debate in Texas. It was
Mhm,
live, so like I didn't really much itch to go back and watch the whole thing. But from what I
mhm,
saw, what I've heard, so that's like a huge asterisk on this. But I would say I think it's probably better than last year, certain terms of what I would want to hear politically, because like last year, the State of the Union happened right at the kind of outbreak of the Ukraine war, and
mhm,
and it was like kind of insane, right? I mean, there were people who are like, in the floor of Congress were like waving miniature flags, breaking out all times of like USA, USA, and like some of what
Yeah,
he
that
was saying,
happened here too.
uh, almost like I don't know, like so the atmosphere last year felt like um, it was it really like the speech that he gave last year was like the kind of speech that you would give. Not that I think he would have literally done this, right? Like if you were like
Mhm.
the last line was going to be so like that's why I'm doing war on Russia or something, But like
Right, right.
whereas from what I saw, the emphasis this year was much more domestic policy, and in particular, the sort of biggest highlight that I saw, discussing and clipping and all that was that he was calling out Republicans for proposing to sunset Social Security and Medicare.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, and I think that's really like I mean, look, we can talk about maybe the other part of what you asked about in a minute, which is about like sort of kind of what we think from our perspective about the Biden presidency. But I mean, uh, one thing just to say, I mean, just before even making any kind of political judgment about it, that it's like I think that's just much better politics than what I've seen from the Democrats a lot in the last couple of years. That like, uh,
Mhm.
and I think you saw this like in the run up to the midterm election because for so much of that time, they were trying to make their sort of big pitch to the voters before the midterms about like, you know, the January 6th hearings and the idea that democracy is on the ballot and all this stuff like that, which I'm not saying that there's no truth to that. I think it's complicated, but I do think that it's just not politics. Like, I just don't think what most voters care about. Like that they like it sounds alarmist, and it's just not. And like it's sort of. Um, I think that the current. I just think that's excite. Like people outside of a very narrow constituency like come out and vote. Whereas if you look at what Biden was saying in like the week leading up to the midterms and what a lot of the big surrogates like Obama were saying week leading up to the
Mhm.
midterms, what did they do? They started to talk about Social Security because Kevin McCarthy had actually said in his like big statement it was called I don't remember what the fuck it was called. It was like the his like promise to America or whatever document before the election.
Mm.
He actually said he was going to cut Social Security and write it there, and I think that that's like
Right.
a much more like I think just like whatever is true. I think just like calling attention to that is just much smarter politics because like if you say the fascists are coming. Well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but like I don't know how many voters really believe that in their bones. Whereas if you say, hey, these rich assholes want to steal your grandma's social security money, and
Mhm.
look at them saying it, right? Like I think that actually, I think that does with a lot more people.
Yeah. It already shapes my view of Kevin McCarthy in general as a Speaker of the House, even though he's not been that long. I mean, this
Yeah,
isn't his first go around. I mean, he's only and we have to remember, we almost didn't have Paul Ryan as Speaker. The Republicans were floating his name, when Boehner resigned, and I think it was like 2015 when they wanted him to be Speaker of the House. McCarthy is Speaker of the House at that point, and then he
yeah,
was like, "No, I'm not gonna do it," because a lot of the Republican base, went away from him. They rescinded their support of him, and then they went with Ryan because he was the last choice. I mean, they didn't really have a lot of people after that, and so now I
no,
think that he's in that job. He's in that, uh, uh, he's I guess you could say he's like the third in command to the presidency, even though that will never happen. Uh, you know, he's gonna have a difficult time, working with the Democrats, even though the ironic thing is like most of them have a history together, at least the more moderately liberal, ones of the moderate liberals of the Democratic Party have a working history. I
Yeah.
mean, I could just say like Manchin, Biden, and McCarthy, at some way, shape, or form, they know each other privately and personally. I mean, outside of working together in the chambers of the House and the Senate, they have a like a history together in their time in politics, whether it
Mhm.
be from the left or the right. And, it's just like there's going to be this internal squabbling. Biden is going to kowtow to his quote unquote Republican friends, even though most of them despise him behind his back, even though they won't say it publicly because they're too much of a chicken shit. Let's be real. And then we're going to be faced into this 2024 election with more gridlock, that's the proper term for it, than we've ever faced before. And for me, as still a young, I mean,
Yeah.
again, I'm 30.
Sure.
It's like 2010. It's like the first Obama presidency, first term of the Obama presidency, all over again. I mean, it's like I'm thinking, right? Like I've already lived through this part in my life. I don't need to live through this again. Okay. I seen what happens with Obama and the Republicans. They all hate his guts. I mean, this time I think McCarthy's kind of trying to be like, because we saw it at the State of the Union, McCarthy's kind of given that little shush moment,
Yeah.
trying when they were booing him and whatnot. And, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kirsten Sinema, they have their, she had that fur coat on, I get, anyway. It was just weird. I'll be honest with you. Like I
Sure.
said, I did a stream about it, and I gave my take about the State of the Union, and I make the case then, I make it now. It's just another moderate neoliberal policies that are never going to be enacted. This is just more squabbling that we don't need anymore, and we're still going to get, regardless if we like it or not. Uh, That's my take.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and it's really hard. I mean, now I think what could have been with a Bernie Sanders presidency.
Yeah. No, for
Sorry,
sure.
needed a
In many
drink.
ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
No, I think in any number of
so
ways, right?
speaking,
It's a haunting thought,
yeah, so,
what could have been if Bernie had been elected. And I don't necessarily think that means like you know, or look, I mean, it doesn't mean like we'd have Medicare for all by now or whatever, because there are bigger obstacles than just who's sitting in the Oval Office. But I think that but I certainly think that you would have like done things like separate out Build Back Better for the bipartisan infrastructure bill and leave the former to die. I think that there would have been at least an attempt, uh, a more serious attempt at heading off, using diplomacy to head off the war in Ukraine, because Bernie Sanders actually wrote an op-ed in February of last year advocating that. I do think that I do think that there would have just generally been an effort to use the presidential bully pulpit to sort of build grassroots momentum for actually a better agenda, even than any of the stuff that Biden kind of half-heartedly said he would do, that hasn't done much to turn into a reality. I mean, I think the Biden administration so far, I mean, has been like, it's been a mixed bag. It's not quite Obama 2.0, just because like the country has changed a little bit since then, and he has to navigate different constituencies in a different way, right, than Obama did. But it sure as hell isn't Bernie either.
yeah, definitely. And the fact that we have to Trump is now throwing his hat in the ring for the 2024 election to do a rematch. Number one, because he's just so obsessed with power. Let's just be real. He wants to be back in the White House, despite all the legal documents that they found at Mar-a-Lago, all the continuing court court papers and everything, the legal stuff that's just still outgoing. And then you got Ron DeSantis over there on like what I would call, I guess, the moderate side of the Republican Party. Who knows whether he could take a shift from that stance. I mean, after all, he was all chummy with Trump in during the presidency, and now that most of the Republicans that don't want Trump back in the White House are like, we want this guy here. And for me, it's like, as on the left, it's like we could care less, and it's just
Mhm.
it's really confusing, and it's just really hard to consume, difficult to consume a lot in the last few months.
Yeah.
I don't know how many days it's been since January 2021, since Biden.
Uh-huh.
It's been a long time. So I guess in that aspect, because I know this is a topic that's been flown around because of Biden, how old he is, and
Yeah.
if he would would or would not run for reelection in 2024. He has indicated that he has, but if any change in circumstance, could you see him being challenged from the left? I mean, it's not a
I
new
mean,
it's not a question that's been asked before. I mean, there's like
uh-huh.
this big thing of Bernie, like maybe it could be Bernie, but like, do you see that? I mean, would you see that happening? Uh,
I mean, I wish it would. I don't. Unfortunately, I don't think it will unless something big changes. But I mean, I wrote an article for Compact magazine uh, late last year, like last fall, called "Bernie Can Deliver for Workers," which was like an endorsement of like um, the it's uh, it was like a response to something to the same magazine was published by people who were making the case for Trump as the best 2024 candidate, and I was making the argument for Bernie, and I meant it, right? I mean, I think that even at his age, like I don't really see any who could plausibly, fill the same role better than Bernie Sanders, and I think that if he ran again, I mean, look, to steal a line from Amber Frost from a few years ago, like even if we had to prop him up like weekend at Bernie's, I would still support him if he ran. But again, I mean, like if we're going to go from what I want to happen, what my ideologies are, to just sort of horse race predictions, then no, I
mhm.
don't think he's going to. I think the realistic scenario, the most realistic scenario where Bernie or somebody like Bernie runs would be if Biden doesn't, right? I mean, if there's a
Yeah,
because even if Biden doesn't and he say steps aside and endorses Kamala Harris, I think there would still be a contested primary. But if
yeah,
Biden does run again, I think there probably would not be a contested primary. There should be because like
right.
Biden's a bad candidate. He's
Oh,
like there are all these polls where like crazy high majority of Democratic voters say don't want him to run again. And I think that it's yeah. I'm not. I mean, like really, the best thing you could say about Biden is that he's probably better than anything neoliberals would be. Like any of these like people like uh, Kamala Harris or Mayor Pete, who just sort of seem like they're grown in pods. At least
yeah,
Biden is old enough that he's from a he's even if he was very much part of the problem in the 80s and 90s, the Obama era,
yeah,
he's at
yeah,
least like at least his memories of Democratic politics go back before the Clinton Obama era. He's inside of a union hall, right? Whereas like somebody like Harris or Buttigieg, um, I think would be both maybe a little bit worse substantively and certainly way worse in terms of to appeal voters because at least in his like doddering kind of uh, sort of yeah in his strange doddering way, um, and at least sort of, he's got like a certain kind of weird charm to him. Like at least he seems like he's made of human parts in a way that those other guys really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of issues with Mayor with Buttigieg, let me tell you.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing with him is that he claimed to be a progressive when we know full well that he isn't. He's just, a moderate neolib. I use that term for anybody who isn't, you know, to the left of the more moderate, to the
yeah,
more typical liberal Democrat. And, there's a lot of hypocrisy in Buttigieg that I take issue with. And as far as like, the transportation secretary, transportation secretary, there's a lot of things that he's probably done in the airline industry or for the airline industry that are would probably be considered
totally. Yeah,
problematic. Problematic. I mean, I don't know what better word to use, but it's just like when Biden when he won the 2020 election, he like said, "Oh, this is going to be the most progressive administration that anyone has ever seen." And for someone like myself, who is a true progressive, for someone like yourself and others who are true leftists, we can look at that and just think, no, that's just pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. I mean, whether you like Biden or not, whether you held your nose and voted for him or not, you know that this is just wool in sheep's clothing. I'm just going to put it that way. That this
totally.
is not what we expect it to be, and it hasn't been, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean that's pretty much my overall critical view of the Biden administration. I mean, I gave him 6 months. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I gave him 6 months
Yeah.
to go ahead and do what he could do, but after that, it was like when you actually look at it and realize that he's not going to do exactly what he said he would. Granted, he's got a lot of opposition from the right wing, which is again ironic, as we were saying that most of them he has a history with these people, and now that he's sitting in the big seat in the presidency, most of them are just opposing him. Which is like not unlike when Obama was president the first time, because Obama was a relative newcomer at that point. I mean, the Republicans were after him from day one, and that's not to say that I have my critiques of Barack Obama now. I mean,
Sure.
we could, if we had time, we could go over just every little single thing under Barack Obama's presidency that was wrong and that should be accounted for. But the fact that the difference was, Obama at the time, a newcomer, the Republicans were attacking him both publicly and probably privately, and Biden, who is much older and has been, as you said, and has been in politics his whole life, they know each other. These people, they all know each other, and here he is, you know, being attacked by the right wing, and it is baffling and it's ironic and it's just I guess I could say also I have a mixed bag about it as well, of the Biden presidency and of the new Congress that just got elected, and they've only been in office for 2 months at this point. Whew. Yeah, that was a heavy rant. I promise I didn't think I'd go on rants like that, but you're actually one of the better people to do this with, you know what I mean? But so I wanted to shift gears. See, that's actually a good segue, right? Just shifting gears. Because I read your article in Jacobin that was a few weeks ago, and actually a month ago. So Lula da Silva has
Mhm.
been reelected to his fourth term at this point.
Yeah.
So if I guess the question I would ask here real quickly. So is this it for him? Like he can't run for president again after this
Uh,
term is up
I
since he's already
guess
served.
I think he can run for reelection. He was, I believe, I could be wrong. I'm certainly not anything like an expert on, Brazilian election law, right? But I think that my understanding is, and thought this was anyway. Uh, my understanding is that when like Dilma came in, before Bolsonaro, the reason that it was because he'd been term limited out because you can only serve so many consecutive terms. But then
Mm-hmm.
when Dilma was impeached, he was all set to, because it was like a term later, right? Then he could run again, and that's when
Mm-hmm.
he was uh, sort of railroaded
Anyway,
and imprisoned. And as soon as he was released, he did run again successfully. So yeah, I believe that the limit is on how many times you can run for consecutive terms. Like I don't think that I don't know what happened in the past if there's is sort of counted against you, but that's also I mean also though this is a question for a Brazilian. This is just my impression.
yeah, I mean, again, credit goes to our late comrade and your friend Michael
Mhm.
Brooks for introducing me to these Brazilian politics. Actually, today I listened or I watched the interview that he and first name is Brian, second name is
But
Daniel. I don't know their order. Yeah, I think so.
Ryan there.
They I think Brian Mayer, and I don't know Daniel's last name. It was
Mm-hmm.
Brazilian. It was the Brazil Wire
Mm-hmm.
interview on the TMBS YouTube channel. I watched both parts, and I got to say, it's probably one of the best interviews I've seen of Lula da Silva, and one of the best interviews that Michael did. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it 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 is so weird. Again, it is so weird to think that how long was it? Like 4 months after that interview that he would tragically pass away. But in watching that interview, I was like, this advocacy that Michael had for Lula. Um, and this was actually the last question I was going to get to. The next question I wanted to ask about was J.R. Bolsonaro, and he's in Florida now because
Yes.
apparently he's I would say self exile uh, because of the
Yeah. I
corruption
mean,
that
he
he
actually flew to Florida just before Lula's inauguration, which was kind of a striking thing because the way apparently Brazilian presidential inaugurations work, the outgoing president passes the presidential sash to the incoming,
Mhm.
and and that didn't happen because when the ceremony was happening, Bolsonaro was on a plane to Florida, and so Lula had this sort of popular gesture. He accepted the sash from the Brazilian people as represented by a sanitation worker who gave it to him, which is awesome. But then it is really interesting because like a week after this, the very shortly after it, I guess I'm not sure exactly, but very shortly after it, like a week or two after it, there was a there was like what's fair to describe as an attempted coup in
Mhm.
Brasilia, and
Yeah.
and I know like I think Americans, myself included, right? I'm not putting
Mhm.
myself in different category, but I think we have a bad
No.
habit of interpreting everything that happens everywhere in the world through the lens of American politics. So it's like
Mm.
oh, Bolsonaro is the Trump of the tropics, and
Yeah.
this attempted coup in Brazil's January 6th. And I'm not saying that there's
Mhm.
nothing to these analogies, but I also think they obscure as much as they clarify because like the circumstances are a lot different, and I think that in particular, uh, one really instructive difference between what happened in Brazil, which is to sort of deepen the tendency
Terrible.
to analogize them, right? That's the January 8th, right, in Brazil,
Yeah.
as opposed to January 6th. But what happened in Brazil, like, actually had a lot more sort of high level support and complicity. That the guy, like the governor of Brasilia, was actually that the district was actually removed from office on suspicion of colluding with the rioters in Brasilia, and the guy who's in charge of the Brasilia internal security, the police, was interestingly enough on vacation in Florida at the time that like all this was happening, and which raises, at least on the surface, some suspicions about whether he was whether he bumped into Jair while he was there, and there was actually Bolsonaro's Minister of Justice. The cops found in his home plans for like a setting up a coup government if this had been successful. All of which is just to say that, like, in some ways, January 6th, the U.S. I think was a symptom of the relative powerlessness of the Trump hardcore by the time that happened. Right, that Trump had kind of tried everything in his power to
Stay in office.
Stay in office, right? Like he was, and like all these Republican appointed judges, Trump appointed judges, were like just tossing his lawsuits out of court. It's like, no, this is nonsense, go away. And like kind of what all that was sort of left to him was this like hardcore, QAnon weirdos and guys dressed up as shamans and stuff like that who were sort of his only remaining backers in that like doomed attempt to stay in office. Whereas I think that there's a lot more sort of high level complicity with 1A in Brazil. And also, I think Bolsonaro himself, like, I think the Trump of the tropics thing, I think kind of understates how bad he was and is. Right? Like this guy who, when Dilma was impeached, he was a congressman in Brazil at the time. He infamously dedicated his vote to impeach Dilma to the head of the secret police in Brazil under the dictatorship, who tortured Dilma. He said on various occasions that the dictatorship didn't kill enough leftists. He and his family seem to be very connected to right-wing paramilitaries in Brazil that like are not like, if you're thinking like with these sort of, sometimes violent, but like also kind of pathetic, lumpy organizations like the Proud Boys or something. I think you haven't quite wrapped you around like how bad militaries are in Brazil, that these are really like these like will like control territory the way that drug gangs will. These are the people who seem to be involved in killing Marielle Franco. That's I mean, this is like really seriously bad news. And I think that the good thing you can say, right, the encouraging thing that goes back to what we were saying earlier and all of that is that this has got to be one of the only cases on record of an attempted right-wing coup in Latin America that the U.S. didn't support, which is great. Yeah. But then, also though, the guy who, last I heard, I mean, I haven't kept up with all the legal developments in Brazil since I wrote this, but last I heard was under investigation for his role in the coup attempt. And at any rate, when he fled to Florida, Bolsonaro was under investigation for various other crimes, corruption, stuff like that. Like, this is the guy, and also I should say, like, his nephew was one of the people storming the government buildings in Brasilia. So it's possible that Jair had no idea what was going on, but I've got my doubts. But in any case, I think that I think it's still a very bad. I think it's still a very bad symbol to have this guy sort of have refuge in the United States, and that you can't. There has to be a formal request. Like sometimes people will say, "Oh, you just extradite him," and it is more complicated than that because you have to have like the Brazilian Ministry of Justice. Now have to the point where their investigation, where they're willing to issue an extradition request, and then there's a whole judicial process you have to go through. But right now, tomorrow, we could just deport the guy, right? I mean, like this is I'm usually and usually I'm usually I'm against when people from Latin America have made their way to the U.S. Usually I'm against deporting them, but I'm willing to make an
Yeah.
exception this time. And I think that it's like I say in the article right I made, like even if you can't like make him go back to Brazil, you can at least essentially tell him what bartenders have told drunks since time immemorial at the closing time, which is have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing is he's gonna have to go back to I mean,
Yeah,
if, like, this gets to, like, say, a criminal trial,
yeah,
depending on how, how big the charges are, and they're probably as big as they can be, he's gonna have to go back and to Brazil and face a court of law, whether he wants to or not, and rest assured, I mean, should that happen, there's gonna be a lot of it's gonna be a show, you know? It's gonna be a big show, and, I'm sure folks like yourself, folks like myself are gonna be covering it as best we can. There's gonna be a lot of drama and toxicity surrounding it, even though we try not to go for the drama as much as you said, like, trying to stay away
yeah.
from the drama, but it's
Well,
like,
there's drama.
it's
There's
not.
drama. Like, there are kinds of drama that
Yeah, yeah,
there's kinds of drama that I'm more comfortable with than other kinds. Let's put it that way.
yeah. But, yeah, it'll be a spectacle was what I'm trying to say. So, I guess the last question I would ask, like, reading the Lula article, one of the
Yep.
things that really kinda I liked about it is, like, you would when you would listen to the Michael Brooks show, and you would
Yep.
put it on because you like, in the article, you said you would put the show on when you were, like, doing simple things like walking your dog,
Yeah.
and when Michael would talk about Lula, your thought would be, "Oh god, not another this Lula again, like, why are we talking about this story again?" It's we but
Yeah.
and then you actually kinda listen to it, and I guess the more you listen, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you realize, "Hey, Michael, he's on point with a lot of what
Hmm.
he was trying to say, and look what happened
Totally.
now." And, it's very emotional, the article, I'll be honest with you, because, again, Michael did not live long enough to see this achievement happen, and,
Yeah.
of course, he was one of the biggest advocates for Lula da Silva there was, and or is, I should say,
Yep.
and, you know what the question I was gonna ask, I mean, he would be thrilled. Let's just be
Yeah.
he would be so thrilled if he had lived to see this, and, I guess the last thing I would wanna ask you is, how do you I mean, what do you think he would have think? What do you think he would feel is
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I mean, I think he did more than anybody in certainly anybody else in American left media, maybe anybody else in American media. Period. To kind of shine a spotlight on it. Right? I mean, just in terms of the sort of tirelessness of his advocacy, and that was. I mean, when he got out of prison, I mean, this was like, I mean, even before that, I mean, like he had. I remember in like January, um, like, well, okay, so I remember in like October 2019, I was
Mhm.
in New York. I was already living in Atlanta at that point, but I was back for like a weekend. I went on Richard Wolf's show, and when they're doing that in person of the pandemic, and I stayed with Michael one of the nights. I was there, and I remember he was getting ready to fly down to Brazil to interview Lula then, and he was extremely excited about it, and that was like what was preoccupying him. And then I remember, or no, sorry, that wasn't October. That wasn't the Wolf trip. That was the one. I think that was when I was there in January, right? If I'm getting the chronology. But anyway, whatever. One of the last couple
Mhm.
of trips to New York, when he was getting ready, and he was like coordinating with those guys from Brazil Wire, all that stuff. And then the last time I was ever in his apartment in February of 2020, the week of the last TS live show. I remember he had uh, he had that framed photo of him with Lula and kind of a place of prominence in the apartment, because I know that meant a lot
Mhm.
to him. And it's kind of yeah. I think that if he'd been around to kind of see the final culmination, which not just Lula being released from prison, which he did live to see, but Lula becoming president again. I can't even imagine he would have been thrilled.
Yeah, he would have been. I mean, I can imagine the enormous amounts of TMBS that we could be watching now that would happen if he had lived to see this. I mean, it was, like we said, it's those what if things. What could have happened? It's been, God. I mean, it's been 3 years almost since he passed away, and it's hard. I'm gonna say, and as someone who didn't really know him, but I read his work and watch his work, posthumously. Um, it feels like we need him now more than ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, I guess the good thing is that a lot of the folks on the left, like the good faith kind, as we would call them, are
yeah,
carrying on his work in a best way, and that's something that we always try to do, is keep his memory alive. Keep his work in his memory alive in the best way possible. That's why I'm doing this show. I was influenced by Michael and the way he talked and the way his delivery and everything that he did and what he wrote about and what he talked about, international politics, whatnot. Like, again, if like pre Bernie's first campaign, pre probably even 2019, if you would have talked to me about international politics on the left or in general, I wouldn't know what to say. I mean, because I wouldn't be in that road. But now that I've had this sort of like new like part of me that's now wanting to listen and pay attention and be more interested in those types of politics that most of us should. And I'm
yeah,
not saying we have to like pull out like a book or something of a certain author and read about
sure,
international politics. And it's just like, being informed, and it was one of the reasons why I like Jacobin, and why I have a subscription, and I'm
excellent.
patiently awaiting the newest article,
Yes.
newest issue. Don't tell me what it is. I mean, I'm tempted to ask, like, give me a preview, but I'll wait.
All right.
I'm sure Boschkar Sankara is probably getting the new issue rolled out here very soon. So, because it's like a bi-weekly, isn't it? It's like every 4 months. I guess so. I don't know. Um, I traded in my Rolling Stone for a Jacobin, and it's also the best
Good
thing I ever
call.
did. Yeah, best call. So Ben, it was great. We're over our 1 hour mark. I generally keep these at an hour unless like there's anything else you want to talk about. But I guess for people, I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of people on the left who know you, but for those who don't, plug away.
Yeah, sure. So I write for Jen and increasingly also the Daily Beast. So those are the two, also other places, but those are the two main places where you can find my stuff. Um, and I've got the new philosophy Substack, Philosophy for the People. That's benburt.substack.com. And then Give Them an Argument is Monday and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 Central, 5 Pacific.
Yeah, yeah, on YouTube. Are you on Twitch also, or just YouTube?
Nope, just YouTube, and then like the audio version goes out as a podcast. But
Ah,
yeah,
got you. Well,
thank
I'm
you.
I'm
Yeah, thank
no
you so much,
problem. I
John.
was
This
gonna say
is great.
I'm also on YouTube and Twitch, so I had to ask.
Sure.
All right, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
All right. Okay, that was okay. That was Ben Burgess of Give Them an Argument. You can go find all the podcasts. You can find him on Jacobin, Daily Beast. And with that, we actually during the show we got a raid on Twitch, Hildy Beast, with 53 people. Looks like some of you kind of tuned out between the interview, but thanks for that, Hildy, on Twitch. Any questions? How Blair you? Oh, thank you. Well done. I can't thank you enough, Blair. You've always been so kind to me. Um, yes, thanks. Woohoo. So this is actually the final interview in this normal format. There's going to be some changes made at a later time. I'm doing some changes to the weekday, to my weekdays, and more on that later. So this isn't necessarily a goodbye. I mean, it's just an end. I don't know when the next YouTube interview will be, but it'll be in a newer format. So with that, I will just say, where's my graphics? Or my captions rather. Um, let's see. Where is there it is. Like and subscribe. Well, that's not the right one. Darn it, I should know all this. Here we go. Follow me on social media. Yeah, like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. Donate to the Patreon, which I've officially got running. That's patreon.com/TJRS. And also like and subscribe. And with that, I hope to see you all very, very soon. Peace. Bye.